Hello and welcome to STAT C1000 at COD for spring 2026. The purpose of this video is to introduce the course, go over a little bit of Canvas that you'll need in order to complete the course, and then to take a look at the syllabus. We'll start by taking a look at parts of Canvas that you will need. If you've never used Canvas before and are having a hard time with it, then contact me and I can give you more individualized help. But otherwise, we won't actually need Canvas like the more advanced features of Canvas very much. The main thing that you'll need to be able to do is to enter the course, which you have done if you're watching this video. Down the left side, primarily account. That's how you log out when you're done. Courses to switch between courses, and that's it. Inbox, if you are going to send or receive a message to me, you can do it through this inbox. In the next column, home takes you to the screen that you've got right here, as does modules. Modules does the same thing. Discussions, if we have discussion questions to answer, you'll see those under discussions. People, I'm not sure if you can actually see that or if it's just me that can, but you may be able to see other people in the course by clicking on that. Office 365, we don't need, but you'll be able to use it. Tutoring, available through the task. You can click on that, and then you can explore Lucid and see what it does if you like. I've never used it. Primarily, we'll spend most of our time in the kind of center column here. Right now, the main block, syllabus and getting started, you've already seen that. If you're watching this introduction start here video. Below that, the syllabus, we'll take a look at that in a couple minutes. After that, in blue, the introduction to my stat lab. That's another video that will explain how to get my stat lab set up and some of the basic features of that. One thing to note is that on this introduction to my stat lab, the video there is not current for this semester. That is the only thing really that's different is the course ID. So the one in the video is incorrect. You'll want to use the one listed right here. This is Kleinfelter 82653. Written instructions on how to create the My Stat Lab account. One thing to note as you navigate Canvas, the things that look like they look a little like a pair of glasses to me, or a chain link. Those are external links. Things that look like a paperclip are links to documents. So that's one way to kind of recognize what each item is. Another thing to note, if you've never noticed it before, is this little kind of triangle navigation device. When the triangle is pointing downward like this means that this is a block that has been opened up. If you click on the little triangle, it will close it. And so now you'll see all those items that were below the syllabus and getting started block have disappeared. The triangle is pointing to the right. If I click on it again, the triangle will point downward and you'll see all those things. Sometimes people will feel like they're looking for something and they've lost it, can't find it. It could be that that's the case, that you've closed the block. If you wish to close all the blocks, you can click on Collapse All here near the top, and that will close everything. As there gets to be a lot of stuff, it can make it easier to navigate if you collapse all the blocks. So we've looked at the syllabus and getting started block. The next thing, hopefully helpful information, some handouts that I've put together on things like alleviating test anxiety, how to do chapter outlining, how to deal with negative thoughts during test taking, things of that sort. At the end, two videos, one on how to make a practice test and one on how to use a practice test. Take a look at your leisure at some of these handouts. Let me know if you find any of them particularly helpful or maybe the opposite of helpful. Maybe, hopefully it doesn't make anything worse, but if it does, let me know. Okay, that's helpful information. And then the next thing, lectures and notes. So far I have a one for chapters 1 through 3. And in that block, you'll see notes for sections 1.1 and 1.2, and then links to lectures on sections 1.1 and 1.2. And of course, there's going to be more as time goes by, but this is just enough for us to get started. So that's basically all we're going to need out of Canvas, primarily getting on here, reading the lectures, lecture notes and watching the videos, which is doable through here. Answering any kind of discussion questions will appear here. Communicating with peers potentially. You can click on people here and potentially and see who's in the class. That's the main things that we're going to need Canvas for. Let me know if you have any questions on Canvas. So the next thing that we're going to do is go on to the syllabus. As a reminder, we're currently watching the Introduction Start Here video. Syllabus is next. All right, so taking a look at this, we're not going to read you the whole thing. That's really boring. I did want to take a second, though, to point out that one of the nice things about this being an online class and the fact that you're watching a video here instead of a live lecture is that you can watch it on a faster speed or slower speed, whichever is better for you. So that's kind of convenient. You can speed it up and slow it down. All right, so statistics, as we've mentioned, I'm the instructor, Dan Kleinfelter. My email address is shown right here. You can email me at any time. I check my email every day during the week and maybe on the weekends. I try to get back to emails within a day. If we're close to a test date, I tend to check it more often, but every day during the week for sure, and then maybe on the weekends. Um, I generally don't check my email after like 10 p.m. or so. So it's going to be earlier than that. If you do send me an email, it will be helpful if you put STAT C1000 and your name somewhere in the email, just so I know uh, I can answer your question more efficiently. I have an office also on the Palm Desert campus. It's in the MSTC building upstairs in 246E. My office hours are shown Monday, Wednesdays, 11 to 12:30, Tuesday, Thursdays, 11 to 12 there. So also, I plan on adding some hours on Zoom as we get a little bit further into the semester, and I'll update you on that when those hours start. Okay. So the next thing, course content. What is the course about? You can read through that. Some of this is not many of it. Much of it maybe won't make a lot of sense. Linear regression, analysis of variance, chi-squared, all of that stuff may not make any sense to you, and that's fine. But basically, the kind of short um, explanation of what the class is about is you've had a little bit of exposure to statistics in your prior learning, things like learning about averages and maybe making bar charts and circle plots and things like that. Fine, you probably found the median and the mode at some point in a math class. It goes further than that. Statistics, there's essentially two halves to it. There's an inferential statistics and a descriptive statistics. Your experience has probably been more with descriptive statistics, which is about describing data, things like calculating averages and modes and medians and making bar charts and things of that sort. The other part, inferential statistics, as the word implies, it's related to the word inference, has to do with using data to make a decision about something. And we'll go further into what that means as we progress. But basically, how do you use some uh, data, some information that you've collected to make a decision or conclusion about some larger set of individuals? And of course, there's a semester's worth of work there, but that's basically it. It's about analyzing data and making decisions about it, more or less. Uh, Prerequisites for the class, Math 45 or 49 are equivalent. Placement, um, you can read through that there. 45 or 49 are basically an intermediate algebra class. The kinds of math or algebra that you're going to need here would be mostly being able to plug numbers into a formula and calculate a numerical answer. We won't need the quadratic formula, but if you've used the quadratic formula before, it's kind of like that. Um, Figure out the numbers, plug them into an expression, calculate, get an answer. Other than that, we'll eventually need maybe something involving slopes and equations of lines. Other than that, arithmetic, working with decimals, percents, and fractions is more important actually than algebra, as it turns out. For the English part, we don't read or write essays here, but a lot of the kind of story problems, which is a lot of statistics, or the narratives that talk about procedures for solving statistical problems do involve a fair amount of reading. It's not as much like an algebra class where you would have a page of factoring problems that don't, and it doesn't take any reading. Here you're more likely to need to read. Um, that's the reason for the English advisories. Math 310 or concurrent enrollment. Math 310 is a support course for statistics. If you're interested, you could sign up for that. And that gives you basically extra time and practice at working with statistics. If you have questions about the Math 310, then you can email the Math 310 instructor for information about that course. Okay, our class format is asynchronous, meaning there's no set meeting times and no live lectures. You don't have to get on the computer at 9:30 every morning or anything like that. The whole class goes just like this. You get on the computer, you watch a video, read some notes, hopefully, and then get on MyStatLab and answer questions. You can do this anytime you want. You could do it at 2 in the morning. You could do it at noon. You could do it on your lunch break at work, although you probably shouldn't. Whenever you want. One thing to kind of be careful of with a class that is asynchronous, that doesn't mean that you don't have to do any work in it ever. It means that you get to choose when you do the work. So you still have a certain amount of time that you need to spend engaged with the class and watching videos and reading the notes and things of that sort. It's just that it's up to you when you do that. So that's kind of the difference between that and a synchronous class. COD is located in California, so all of our due times are Pacific time. If you're located somewhere else, or if you're going to go to Greece or something on vacation, then it's up to you to keep track of any kind of time adjustments. Okay. Right, time commitment, the kind of typical goal is to spend at least 8 hours per week on the class, aside from the time spent viewing lectures. The time spent viewing lectures would correspond to the time you'd spent in sitting in lecture if this were like a in the classroom type of class. There's that. Separate from that, the 8 hours refers to things like studying, reading through the book, practicing problems, and things of that, activities of that sort. That can vary, that 8 hours. It depends on a number of things. It depends on what part of the course we are in. If you're working on kind of the beginning parts, a lot of vocabulary, or doing things like bar charts, maybe, it will take you less time. If we're doing something like confidence intervals and something that's kind of deeper, it can take you longer. Also, it's going to depend on the individual. Some people have taken a class very similar to this before. Maybe they've taken this class before, and so have a lot of background in it. Other people, maybe they took their last math class like 5 years ago in high school or something, and so they just maybe kind of more rusty in math. The point is there that it's going to take a different amount of time for a different amount of people, and also depending on what part of the course we're working on. But if you deviate too far from it in either direction, then you may run into trouble. If you're spending 0 or 1 hours per week and not getting the grade you want, you could try adding more time. At the other end of it, if you're like living and breathing statistics, spending 20 hours a week on the computer and 10 hours a week in the tutoring center, then potentially something is wrong, and we could try to find a way to help make your studying more efficient. Okay, if you have any questions about the time spent on the class, let me know. There's one required text, Elementary Statistics, the 14th edition, it says My Math Lab Access, but it's really My Stat Lab, by Triola. The My Math Lab or My Stat Lab course ID will be on Canvas, and I showed you that already before. I'll show you again at the end of this video. Um, Whether you have a paper copy of the book is totally up to you. I don't care, and I won't even know. So if you want to get the paper copy of the book, go ahead. Some people prefer to have that to read as you do your work. You will need the My Stat Lab access because that's how you do the homework and tests and everything. With that My Stat Lab, you do get access to an ebook, so you can read through the book digitally. The other video, the introduction to My Stat Lab, will go over that more with you. If you have any questions about which book to get or any of that, let me know. All right, next, grading, how grading works. We'll have 3 tests over the course of the semester. Those will be worth 15% of your grade each, making 45%. Homework and quizzes, as with the exams, those will also be done on My Stat Lab. Participation and discussion questions will be just 3% of your grade. I pointed out the discussion feature on Canvas. I may potentially post discussion questions on there, and your answers to those would contribute to this 3% participation in discussion questions component of your grade. At the end, we'll have a comprehensive final worth 20% of your grade. In general, exams will be scheduled in advance and will probably occur on Thursdays. You'll have at least 90 minutes to complete the exam within that time frame. I'll give you at least a week's notice that the test is coming. Um, our exams are usually about every 3 chapters. So when we get to the end of chapter 3, um, 6 and 9 approximately is when we'll have each test. So you'll know it's coming, but I'll let you know for sure. Exams are due at 11:59 p.m. Again, remember that is Pacific time. You'll need to start earlier to have the full time. So if you have 90 minutes for the test, then you need to start by 10:30. If you start at 11:30, it's going to shut off. It's not going to let at midnight. It's not going to let you run until 1 a.m. So you do get 90 minutes, but there's a hard deadline of midnight on the test day. So you can't start at like 11:50 and expect to work till 1:20 in the morning, right? You can work on the test anytime during the day. Typically, I make them available at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you can start anytime in that interval. So you could work from 8 to 9:30. You could work from noon to 1:30. You could work from 3 to 4:30 or 8 to 9:30 at night. Once you start the test, you have to finish it. You can't like do a half an hour before work and then go to work and then come home and then do the other hour like uh, at night or something. Once you start the test, the clock is running and you have to finish it within that 90-minute time period. Okay, if you have any questions about the timing for the test, let me know. The final exam will be Thursday, May 21. For that one, it's longer. It's a final. You'll get 2 hours for that one. More information about the final when we get closer. There's no makeups for missed work. We'll have a lot of work over the course of the semester. If you miss a couple of quizzes, maybe, or homework assignments, it's not going to drastically affect your grade overall. Of course, you don't want to make a habit of it. There aren't makeups, though, so you want to be careful not to miss too many things. Plus, you learn less if you miss work. All right, none of the exams, including the final, can be taken early or late. If you miss one of those first 3 exams, one of those ones that's 15% of your grade each, then I'll replace that missing score with whatever you earn on the final. Only one score is replaced this way, though. So if you have the misfortune of missing 2 tests, and I've had people do this, the second missed one is going to count as a 0, and that really will kind of plummet your grade. So make sure to do your best not to miss more than 1 test. Okay, there's no makeups for the final. If you miss the final, and I've had people do that too, then that again will just kind of torpedo your grade. Right. Don't miss deadlines. You might want to get a calendar or planner or something just for deadlines for this course. I would if I were a student, but then I'm like that. Um, Try to keep track of deadlines. I typically post assignments. I usually do the posting over the weekend for the following week, and you'll usually have at least 4 days to get an individual assignment done. I'm not going to post something Tuesday and have it due Wednesday, right? Typically, if you'll have at least 4 days to get on my math lab and notice that there's an assignment and get it done. All right, you should be logging into my stat lab and checking at least a couple of times a week. Your grade is determined by your performance on the assigned work, according to a weighted average scheme. You need 90% for an A, 80% for B, and so on. COD doesn't do plus minus grading, so that's it. A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's. No rounding is guaranteed. So a 79% might still be a C. A 78 probably will be a C. There may be rounding, but there's no guarantee of that. Okay. There's no extra credit. Make sure to do your best along the way so that you don't need the extra credit. No credit is given for things like needing the class to graduate or transfer or being an athlete or having a scholarship or an international student, anything like that. I think it's most fair and equitable for people to be graded just on the work they've gotten done, not any kind of other extraneous factors. Okay, so there's that. Um, we talked about homework. Calculators, a scientific calculator will be helpful. Some people like to use a graphing calculator. You can, like a TI-83 can be helpful, but no specific calculator is necessary. Within my stat lab, there's a software called StatCrunch that can be used to do a lot of the statistical calculations. Otherwise, you can use a calculator. You can use spreadsheet like Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel to get a lot of calculating done. If you want to know whether a specific calculator is good for the class, just ask me. Okay, student learning outcomes, read through that if that interests you. Attendance, your attendance isn't used in calculating your grade. However, people who attend class, that is, get on Canvas, watch the lectures, read the notes, get on my stat lab, do the work, things like that, um, and tend to do better in the class and get a higher grade. You may be dropped from the class if you don't do work in my stat lab from 4 or more consecutive days. If something comes up, like you're going to be like somewhere there's no internet or um, incarcerated or something, and you can't get on my stat lab for whatever reason, but you want to stay in the class, then let me know. Okay. The thing is, with an online class, especially an asynchronous one, sometimes people will sign up with good intentions. They plan to do all these things, and their in-person classes and their work and their personal relationships or whatever can take precedence. And so the online class gets kind of forgotten about. And if you forget about this class for like 6 weeks or something, you're not going to end up with a good grade in it. So to try to protect people, if I notice that you've been kind of gone, I'll probably end up dropping you. Okay. So flip side though, if you know you're going to be disengaged from the class for 4 or more consecutive days and you want the class, then let me know. Just be in contact. Don't just kind of disappear. Classroom conduct. Aside from the student code of conduct in the college catalog, there's really only one rule: be honest and polite, civil, courteous to one another. Um, if we post to the discussion forums, use work or school appropriate language, be polite to people. If several people are in my office hours, we're going to take turns answering questions. So pretty easy stuff. Okay, students with disabilities, read through that, let me know, and then also check in with the SPS as soon as possible. Um, don't cheat. We'd mentioned that there's no extra credit. Do your best the first time. Math can be math in general, statistics too, can be pretty hard to catch up once you're behind. There are kind of some goalposts in or mile markers, I guess you could say, in statistics where once you get to a certain point, you're kind of safe in a way. Like the first 3 chapters almost kind of act independently. Chapter 5 of our book acts kind of independently, but if you didn't understand chapter 6 at all, you're not going to understand anything really after for the rest of the course. Like chapters 7, 8, and 9 totally depend on chapter 6. So basically try not to get too behind on any one part. But the later you go in the semester, the more, for one thing, the more fast it goes, and also the more dependent on prior material stuff gets, if that makes sense. All right, so there's that. Some general advice. A lot of times people have a tough time with math and statistics. There's baggage associated with it, and so that's just a thing on its own. Math and statistics have word problems, which people cannot like sometimes. So some advice to help make it better. You should work on statistics every day. As I mentioned, the class is asynchronous. You can work on it kind of whenever you want. My advice would be to pick a time to work on it and then schedule that. That is, if you decide, okay, well, I'm going to work on it like on Wednesday afternoons from 4 to 7, and then Saturday from 5 to 8 or something. Then, for example, then that's going to be more likely for you to be successful than if you just say, okay, well, if I happen to have some spare time here and there, then I'll get on statistics and work on it. If you schedule that time for yourself, then it can lead to more likely that you'll be successful. The fact that the class is asynchronous means that different people can choose different times. Some person may want to work Saturday morning. Some people are night people and would like to work from like, 10 p.m. to like 2 in the morning or something. But if you schedule that time for yourself, whatever time you choose, then it can make it more likely for you to be successful. Okay, maintain a positive attitude. Regardless of how you feel about the material, you are moving in the direction of something you want by taking this class. So try to keep that in mind. Hopefully, you enjoy the class, but not everybody does, and that's just realistic. But keep in mind that you're working towards a goal that you want to achieve. I plan for you to read the book and watch the lectures, read the notes. I know a lot of times math books can be hard to read, but even trying to understand the section will help you watch the video. Um, you can read through the rest of that. Math and statistics, to be successful in it takes practice. Just watching the videos is not going to be sufficient. You actually have to do the problems in order to really get a feel for how to get them done. Okay, all right. That's the end of it. That's the end of this the syllabus. If you have any questions about how your grades calculated, the things you need to buy for the class, different policies, things of that sort, then let me know. And as I'd mentioned, the next thing that you want to do is watch the introduction to my Stat Lab video, and that will show you how to get the My Stat Lab account created. And keep in mind in that it is an older video, and so the code is incorrect in there. And so you'll want to use this code instead, Kleinfelter 82653. So that'll be your next steps. So take a break or something, get a beverage of your choosing, and then introduction to My Stat Lab would be next. So welcome to the course. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, let me know. And then have a great day.